and welcome to Faith, Final Drafts, and the F Word. I'm Darla Phillips, a host and producer, along with fellow screenwriters Sarah Hopkins and Rebecca Williams Spindler. Join us as we share our experiences navigating careers in film and television. Add in the twist that we're women of faith, entering into life's second season, and you might find yourself mumbling under your breath. Good luck with that, ladies. Follow along for some guaranteed laughs and some valuable screenwriting and industry perspective. Anyone with a dream will enjoy this podcast video. Hope you join in. And remember, we gotta enjoy the journey. All right, welcome back to our podcast, Faith, Final Drafts, and the F Word. Okay, so today we're talking about the paths we've taken. We're gonna get in deep on some of the things like festivals we've been to, competitions we've been a part of, networking, the tools we've used. And I'm going to open it up for discussion. So let's start with, I want to start with the first film festivals we went to together. So we talked in our last episode about how we met and how we all joined a screenwriting forum and networked and got to know each other even more. And through that process, we shared with each other competitions that would come up that we would maybe submit our writing to. And those competitions, some of them led us to film festivals that had screenwriting conferences put on by Screencraft, which they were excellent, and we'll get more into that. So I want to take us back to
2016.
The very first festival we went to in Nashville.
It was 2016.
Yes.
It was Nashville.
Yes.
And it was the film festival with the Screenwriters Conference sponsored by Screenwriter.
Yes.
There you go.
Sarah and I had submitted through Screencraft. Becky submitted through Nashville's screenwriting competition. And we all got discounted badges to go.
And I have to say this. So my feature was in the top 6 in the music inspired category. And I was the only female
There you go.
female screenwriter in the top 6.
Whoa.
So
You're breaking down glass ceilings.
yeah. And I pay attention to that. I pay attention to, these semifinalist lists and all these competition lists, and I scan to look what's the ratio, male to female. Who's
I've
there.
had that same thing with Screencraft's action and thriller. So like action and thriller films are usually written by dudes, kind of like, holy cow, like why aren't girls writing more action movies? Like I love action movies. That's why I'm writing them now. So it's important.
Yep. Okay, so I'm trying to think of the most memorable things that happened that weekend. Do you remember how we were all like, we gotta pitch that person? Like we were all finding these people that we need to pitch our story to.
Right.
And I just remember the whole time being like stressed. Okay, Darla, you can do it.
Well, let's talk about how you approach these people, right?
Yes.
It's the festival setting.
Yes.
So in between workshops and panels, there's films being shown in the actual theaters and whatnot. And when they have these film festivals with the Screenwriting Conference, they give you a schedule of events.
Yes.
And usually somewhere, at least twice a day, there's some kind of mingling event, whether it's a lunchtime or it's a red carpet or it's a happy hour. That's kind of when you take your opportunity, Don't shark these people when they're just getting ready to go on stage to give their workshop.
Or they're coming out of the man's bathroom, the men's bathroom.
Yeah. And you'll see that when they're done with their workshop, there is just this streamline of people that like rush the stage to want to talk to these people. And if I was on the opposite end of that, it'd be a little like, But if I got a drink in my hand and I'm just kind of sitting on some lounge chairs and someone comes up to me and says, hey, I thought your panel was awesome. I really learned a lot. I love your such and such movie that brought you here today.
Talking to.
They're more open to say, come on, have a seat with me. Tell me, what do you write? So that's kind of how you network in these kinds of events. Yeah.
Or you sign up for the actual pitching sessions where, oh my gosh, pitch three producers in what was did you guys both do the pitching that year?
Yes.
It was like 15-minute settings where you're like, pitch your story, then move to the next, and
it's like flash dating or whatever.
Yes.
The
Speed
round
dating.
table. The
Yes.
round table. Yeah. So you pay to be there. I think it's a little extra.
Yeah.
But you're literally at a round table and you just go around the table and pitch your thing, and it's got to be 3 minutes max, even less.
I don't even remember this so long. I don't have very much time.
Yeah.
And
know your story.
Yes.
And be excited to tell your story.
Yes. And that was such a good experience to pitch. And
yet terrifying.
And terrifying. This is the stuff. We're talking about the courage. This is the stuff I still can't believe. Oh my gosh.
My mantra is fail forward.
Yes.
Because I literally started at full, like my first, like that Nashville experience was, there was failures on so many epic levels.
We're getting to that. Sarah had some amazing networking going on.
And some amazing failures.
So when you go to these competitions, you might be starstruck, right? Because these panelists come from the industry, LA, New York, whatever, and you read their bios in the schedule of events, and you're like, oh wow, this is an Oscar nominated person, or this is an Oscar winner, or this is an Emmy nominated person, and they might be writing the show that you're a huge fan of, and so you're like, deer in the headlights, but they come to these festivals because they know it's a networking event. So again, be brave and be human.
Yes.
Just be yourself and just go up to them and say, hey.
I think we are very tactful in how we approach people. I just remember we would be like giving each other courage. Like we'd go sit in the little lounge and you're like, okay, I'm going to go. He's right there. Or she's right there. I'm going to go. And I just remember, oh my gosh, just how nerve-wracking and scary, but also how awesome that whole trip was.
I think the thing that was so cool about it was that we did it together. Like if you can go do a film festival with some friends, that
with a writers conference, for
sure. Like it just gives you a little bit of that extra confidence. I mean, because it's a super awkward place to put yourself in. Like the whole time you're like, I don't belong here. I don't belong here. I don't belong here. I remember thinking that. I was like, what am I doing here? I don't belong here. Like this is so outside of my normal world or whatever. And it is very fun. Especially when you have a lot of wine at an open bar.
So this is where we'll get into a little bit of
things you do and things you don't do at a film festival. It was the last night. Let's preface that. It was the very last night of the festival. It was all winding down. It was a happy hour that was. Yeah, it was very fun, and it was just like this awesome, like especially like when you're a mom that doesn't get to go out, and it was like go have a good time, but maybe not that good of a time.
Once you're in the airplane and you're sitting down, and then we can share the golden tickets. And what I mean by the golden ticket is how many emails did you collect? How many business cards did you collect?
Yes.
And it might sound old school, but when you go to these festivals, make up your own business cards because it's all about network swap.
Ooh, pro tip that I learned there by this woman that saw me do this. So somebody was asking me for a card and I was fumbling in my purse, right? And then they usually get these lanyards that have like your name, your badge, and blah, 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 whatever. She's like, honey, put all your cards in your lanyard. I was like, that's a great idea. You know what I mean? So it was like all these little tips that you learn just so you're not awkward, because you're gonna be awkward with these people unless you're
it's a badge of honor to flip your lanyard around and have like 50 business cards shoved in there, and people are like, who are you? I'm gonna follow you because you got a lot of cards.
And I'm gonna bring, because I have mine upstairs still with all my cards packed in there, so maybe
it's a great episode. Like you're like, now I know where I met these people and that kind of stuff, plus all your cards are in there too, so you're not fumbling with it.
And dudes, totally, like if they hand you a card and they give you a little bio, or you talked about something in particular, write that on the back of the card, like,
to jog your memory.
We talked about cheese from Wisconsin. And so when you do email that person back, you can say, hey, remember we met at Nashville and we talked about cheese from Wisconsin. That's right. So that stands out to them in their thousands of emails that they get. Yeah.
That's good.
So
good advice.
Right.
Keep knowing, keep remembering.
Don't drink too much. Put your cards in your lanyard. That's all I have to offer people. My work here is done.
This is okay, so we went to Nashville again, but I feel like were you with us, Becky? You were both Nashvilles.
Right.
It was Atlanta
right.
And you went Austin that year. So but next year it was such a great experience. We did it again. I don't think Ken was there the second year. And
my liver thanks you for not being there for that one.
We had to come again. We had to come back because we got the lanyard.
So that's another perk about entering stuff into these film festival competitions, that if you do place as a semi-finalist or finalist, they give you a discount, a substantial discount on the pass to go to the festival, because they want you to come and talk about your your script
Yeah.
and get it out there and market it. So yeah, and that's kind of what we did. It's like, well, who do you pick to go up and talk to? You pick producers, you pick directors, people that have had stuff made, and then you just get brave enough to talk about, you know, what you made. And if it's in the same genre that they make, then that's the golden ticket. If you walk away with an email address or a business card, that's it. Totally worth the money to go to these festivals when that happens.
That's the access, and that's another thing that we need to point out too. Like, we don't live in LA. You know, we live in the Midwest. And right now, you know, interestingly enough, with 2020, like, the world has gotten very small. Hello, Zoom kind of thing.
Right.
But not living in the industry hub, it can be difficult to really network in an organic way. You know, like, it's one thing to have like a Zoom meetup with somebody or a general meeting or whatever, but these festivals are great because it puts everybody on a level playing field. You know, you have access that you would not normally have, kind of thing. So that part was huge. If you don't live in the industry, you need to put yourself around people that are in the industry, even if it is just to practice networking. And how do you talk to a producer versus talking to a director versus talking to another writer
or a manager
or a manager or whatever, like knowing what each one of those roles would be looking for in you, kind of thing. So yeah, for sure, it's super important to be able to network in whatever that looks like right now. You just need to be doing it because people, it's going to take a village. You're not going to do this alone. Like, it's going to take a village, and it's going to take creating networks, creating fans, becoming fans, promoting other people's work. Like, it's very much a give and take, and it is a village situation. I think
the longer I'm in this, the more I realize it takes a team of people who believe in you, and we believe in each other. It's definitely an effort, a team effort. And then to get anything ever made, we can talk about the experiences of making short films, which we've done. I think Becky and I both been a part of those experiences. You find out that you do need a network of people to help, and you have to like share that dream and get them excited about it. And that's kind of, and then on the big, I mean, oh my gosh, to go have something made, like, you know, for the big screen, I can't even imagine. Anyways,
So let's talk about, like, you know, resources. We've talked about contests, so let's expand on that. So we've talked about the Nashville Film Festival contest. There's the Austin Film Festival contest. What other contests?
So the contest for me I mean, obviously my biggest, most exciting win ever was the Page Award. That I was like top 10 a finalist. I've also had great finishes with We Screenplays, with Screencraft, Stage 32, two finalist finishes there for 2 different scripts, Because You Can and then Book of Morgan.
Before I do that, I did want to add to that list, the Nickel is probably the premier contest that most people enter. It's also probably the highest submissions. So the Nickel is one of those ones where you're not going to enter your
horror flick?
Yeah. There's a little bit of genre stuff in there too, but I feel like if you're going to take the time to enter Nickel, it better be the best possible script.
Because the judging panel is associated with the Academy Award.
Exactly. Yeah. So these are professional readers. These are professional people that they're any little thing that you don't do right, they're going to be very quick to, you know what I mean? Right. And if you can ever place in any of that stuff, that's definitely something to put a feather in your cap. Like, even like, you know, quarterfinalist or whatever, like, that's a huge big deal. And even like with all of these contests, like, you have to start somewhere, and it starts with the script, right? And before you ever enter any contest or even, you know, submit to any film festival, you need to make sure that somebody's looking at your work. You know what I mean? Like, exactly. Before you push that, because you don't want to waste anybody's time or the money that a lot of these cost. It could be anything from maybe $60 to, I think, what's the most you think?
85
to $100 or something like that. And you know, if you're gonna put some money behind it, you know, money is valuable, and you know, you're gonna want to make sure that whatever you do submit is the best work that you can possibly submit at that point in time.
So how do you take a class, or how do you read a book to find out if you've got the skills to polish a screenplay? So like, for me, I love David Trottier's Screenwriter's Bible, and you can pick that up on Amazon or, you know, Barnes and Nobles or whatever, and he updates it. So I'm not sure which version it's, but David Trottier's Screenwriter's Bible And if you're going to be a serious screenwriter, you know, you can read screenplays. You can go out on the internet and, you know, read screenplays. But if you're going to actually create one, doing it and formatting it is a very unique thing that you need to learn.
Yes.
And I would recommend Final Draft. It's about $160.
It's a software.
It's a software that's for Mac or PC, but it helps you understand the format of screenwriting. It's not just something. There's a specific format.
And can I just get a little plug? Buy the software before you write. I wrote my whole first draft of my
in Word document.
In Word.
Me too.
And worse, I sent it off to a networking. My husband and I had met an indie director, and so John's like, send it off to him, and I'm like, okay, and of course he sends me back. First of all, you need to read Save the Cat. He didn't even mention Final Draft. It's like, you just need to get your formatting. You need to get your structure. And I'm so grateful for that now. I'm like, I hoped one day. I did reach out and tell him thank you for that advice. But a big thanks to producer Jordan Foley. But I read my education was trial by error, do it wrong first. Word, get the Final Draft. I would say for sure, don't skimp there. And then I did read Save the Cat, Snyder's Save the Cat, and there's always drama around that book, which I don't know why, because it was very helpful to me. I still use the tools if we ever take a view of my front porch or my crazy notes on the wall. But for me, that was obviously doing it wrong and then reading a book that helped me do it right, and then reading lots of screenplays and getting lots of feedback.
Yes, the reading screenplays is huge. Like I'm like a reverse engineer oftentimes, which is one of the reasons like I had to like read it and try to understand the formatting, and then I had to figure out you know the beats of what a story is, and then like Save the Cat was very helpful because it breaks it down. Like if you're a very first time screenwriter and you just even want to understand like how does a movie work, like and like spoiler alert, like you're gonna read this book and you'll be like, oh, every movie does this, and you're like, no, I get it. Like it's like this aha moment a little bit, which is kind of a wonderful thing, but it peels, you know, it takes the mystery out of it a little bit. And you know, your first screenplays, even if it's you know, very formulaic, you learn so much in that kind of thing. So yeah, it's Save the Cat for sure for me too.
And Final Draft.
Yes.
Or any screenwriting book.
So there is some free screenwriting software I think that's out there, and maybe we can figure out how to link all that and whatever. But there's some really amazing free resources before you get started. Like, don't go out and buy Final Draft if you've never read a screenplay yet. Like,
no, that's true. You know? Make sure you're be pretty committed. Be committed. But once you're committed, I wouldn't do the word. Don't do the
don't do
doc.
it in Word, because then you're gonna have to import it into Final Draft.
Yes.
And let me just tell you something. You think having a teething toddler is bad. Like, the import situation that comes in a Final Draft, you're like, I hate everything. I'm going to burn everything down. Everything's getting burned.
And Final Draft, you know, for someone who's not techie, it's pretty idiot-proof, you know, because I don't consider myself techie by any means. But it's so awesome because you can literally click character or click action or click transition, and it just helps you kind of put all those puzzle pieces together.
Makes it so easy, so nice. So there's our plug for Final Draft. Screenwriting books, reading scripts.
Well, for me, it was like taking that online class. Like, who takes an online class to learn screenwriting? I did, and it's crazy when you start, you know, being around all these people that have all these amazing scripts, and you're kind of like in, you know, you're in that same boat with them, and you're kind of considered that same, you know, caliber of a writer, and they all have like their MFAs and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, I'm online screenwriting. I'm 40, you know. You don't. That's something that I feel like is really important to point out. You know, when you get into the arts and you're trying to follow this dream, you know, if you want to go be a lawyer, what do? You go to school, and then you take the bar, and then you're a lawyer, and then you go do lawyer stuff. You do that job. And writing isn't like you go to school, and then they say, here's your certificate, go be a writer. Guess what? You got to go write. Screencraft was my kind of way in. So Screencraft is, at that point in time, it was kind of one of those screenwriting contests that has different genres for different types of writing. So like they'll have action thriller or drama or family or comedy. And at Ken's recommendation. He said, you need to start getting this into some contests. And I was like, all right, here we go. I have no idea what I'm doing kind of thing. And ended up throwing it into a couple contests. Screencraft was one of them, and it was specific to their action and thriller genre. So put it in, and I was like, well, that was pretty cool, and whatever's gonna happen with this is gonna happen with it. And ended up getting a notification that I was the runner-up, and I had no idea what that meant, but I was freaking out. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And in a funny way, I remember being like, but I really wanted to do their fellowship. You know what I mean? I was like, can you just fast forward it to that? Like, can you just like slip it over into that one kind of thing? But no, that was an amazing experience because a lot of times people look at contests and they're like, oh, I want to win all the money or whatever kind of thing. And for Screencraft, their runner-up, it's like $500 or $400 or something like that, at least back then. And the real opportunity was getting 3 calls with managers. So literary managers, which are people that basically they're kind of the go-between between you and the executives. You can't just take your amazing script and send it to HBO and be like, this is the best script ever. They're going to be like, no, don't do that. You cannot send your scripts unsolicited. Like, do not do that. Do not send any executive your script. So anyway, the manager part was what was most exciting about it, because I was like, that's somebody that really helps you launch your career. And it was the coolest thing ever, especially after being a stay-at-home mom for that long. And then getting like a $400 check in the mail or a $500 check. I was like, I just need some money right here. It was pretty cool. Yeah. In fact, I think I like took a picture of it and like printed it out and like have it somewhere. So I was like, that's my first handwriting thing or whatever. But yeah, no, that was a really cool opportunity, having those calls with managers, and that is actually how I got represented, was by, through this contest. So super grateful to Screencraft. I think the biggest thing that I learned from that was like getting notes, like learning how to get notes off these scripts, even though you feel like, oh, I did so great in this contest or whatever. Some of the best contests are the ones that you're going to get some feedback from. Mm-hmm. Or, and if you're investing in yourself, you're investing in your writing, you're going to maybe invest in paying a little extra to get notes back. Because these are people that are readers. They're going to let you know what's working in your screenplay and what's not, and they're completely objective, meaning these aren't your favorite friends and family. They're gonna say, it's a really great script, and I love you, and I love this story, and you need that kind of feedback, of course, but it's always really good to get other feedback that's really, really constructive. And Cameron's notes were just epic, and I immediately started rewriting it, and that was one of the things that really stood out to this manager that I ended up signing with. Was I was rewriting already. I was immediately looking at this and taking notes and like, oh my gosh, I get this. Like, my structure's terrible there, kind of thing or whatever. So that was, Screencraft was my in to, the business, as they say. But my in isn't like, well, like they always say, where's your movie? Kind of thing. I was like, no, that's not how it works. It's such a long process, and you just really never know which project is going to go or whatever. And it started so many different relationships, and it started all that networking and connections because the door was finally open to meet these people that can take it to the next level. But yeah, I think Screencraft for me was what really helped me start my career. Really, it was
that win.
It was
runners up.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was a crazy awesome. I'm super grateful about it. And like when we come back to the faith part, when you're looking for little confirmations kind of thing, and that was like the frying pan up the head moment, like, hey, guess what? You might want to really consider actually doing this kind of thing.
Good at this.
Yeah. So it does. It's such a shot in the arm when you need to get boosted and you're trying to hone in on your craft. You should always be working on your craft, kind of thing. And that was one of those things that I was like, oh my gosh, I want to really figure this out.
Yes.
Like that fire was kind of lit once that happened. So that's my story.
Awesome. Oh my goodness. And your story was so inspiring to me, because I had just met, both of you, and I remember just thinking, oh my goodness, she's made it. She's got a manager. And that is half the battle. We're always like, how do you get a manager? How do you get a manager? And so that kind of leads me into, I think, one of the most pivotal moments in my process, I guess, of figuring out where do I fit in this industry as a woman of my age. I guess I will bring it up. What was my pathway going to be? And I remember being in Atlanta, doing the networking, the social networking, and I just remember thinking, this is great. It's nice meeting all these people, but I don't know. I'm like, this is not how I'm going to break in. And I'm not saying drinking's wrong, but when you're not,
It's not wrong, but it helps. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean,
Brought to you by wine.
Yes.
I know. And so, like the social atmosphere is not necessarily my strong point, you know, in that element. And so I just remember in this networking evening, it just like hit me like a lightning bolt. It was like, Darla, your only way in, the only way I'm getting in is through writing. I have to write something so spectacular. And just happened to be at Atlanta that year was Danny Manis, who's a script consultant out in LA. And he was in my mentoring group we all had mentoring groups that year. And I just thought, okay, he seems pretty badass. he's gonna kick my butt. My script that got me into the page finalists, I wrote it, and he would give me verbal notes, and he was harsh, and kicked my butt. Like I said, he really pushed me hard. It was the script that I entered into Page and also Stage 32 and the We screenplay. It finished high well in all those. So, you know, script consultants, you know, for me, he was a great tool to push me.
Did you just call him a tool?
He was a tool.
You'd be like,
yes. And then
Danny's awesome.
Then the networking through, and this I'm going to give, I mean, because Sarah, you both are great networkers. I mean, I feel like I'm a networker, but you guys are amazing networkers.
A wine and a smile.
Yes.
Smile goes along.
Yes. So
just one glass.
Okay. So our manager, that Sarah and I both share, we both have known him about the same amount of time, but Sarah was so amazing about keeping in touch with him over the years. And it just happened that I had this amazing script, and Sarah had kept such a good contact with him, and you know, it just worked out that
it was organic.
It was organic. I got to sit down.
It's really hard, I think, in this industry for things to feel organic.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you're hustling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you don't live there, and so you're trying to capitalize on all these opportunities, and the last thing you want to look or feel like is desperate.
Yes.
It's like blood in the water. People are gonna smell that a gazillion miles away. You know, like you're just gonna know. And we've all been around people that have that desperation, you know, kind of thing. And that's where, like, you know, a lot of it is, you know, figuring out what your strengths and your weaknesses are, and then figuring out how you're gonna capitalize on either one of those. And then, you know, making sure that, you know, like, I feel so much more confident when I'm with other people that are in the same shoes. Like when we go places together, it's just like it's an amazing feeling because you have a confidence because you're like, my sister's got my back, or, you know, like that kind of thing. So if you are the type of person that is, you know, introverted or maybe feels very socially awkward, dude, you need a wingman.
Yes, for sure.
You know, and having people that are in that same boat where you're going to be standing at this film festival or wherever.
Yes,
and like, how do I not look awkward or desperate right now? It's like, it's almost like it goes back to dating in a weird way where you're like, how do I
It's a date plus a job interview all at the same time.
It can be really overwhelming. So knowing that you have, you know, wingmen, wingwomen, whatever, your sisters that are, you know, kind of out there doing the same thing, it's so helpful. It really, really is. So you guys always bring out the best in me.
And be organic. And I really think you made a good point there about, and that's something I instinctually knew myself, was it had to come together organically. I knew like me forcing it wasn't going to happen. And so that I just think the writing, and we were just talking about this last night, every time I start to feel like, oh my gosh, it always comes back to my writing. Like, why is something not going forward? Why do I feel like I'm stuck in this moment? And I can only blame my own self. It's like, it's back to the writing.
Oops, censored.
I'm writing my way to the top. All right, and now back to our most respectable. Let's tell us about your experience at the Austin Film Festival, and then with the competition.
I went to Austin for the first time in 2011, and I was pretty newbie at that time, right? You know, I had maybe 2 features written, and I got my start in writing because I had a little kid in the house that loved Pixar, so I started writing family animated features because we watched so many
Right.
family animated features. And in 2011, they actually had a panel from Pixar come to Austin. And so I'm like, okay, gotta be there, gotta do that. And so I went, and I went again with 2 other, screenwriters that I knew from Wisconsin. We had all been to Austin. This is our first time. Again, we did the branch out thing. You go check out this workshop. I'm going to check out this one. I'm going to check out this one. So, I'm sitting in like the 6th row of the Pixar panel, right? And these are the guys that wrote Kung Fu Panda. And they also had the creative development executive, who was a female from Pixar at the end of the panel. And so, you listen to it's awesome. You're taking notes. I was just in awe. I didn't take a whole lot of notes, but I absorbed a lot of things. And I absorbed the whole process of how you take a screenplay and how you cast it and how you get, bring it to life like Pixar does so well. And so afterwards, I'm there by myself. The room is emptying. The female executive's kind of, making her way outside. I kind of slowly follow along.
It starts.
Yeah. And so, we're waiting by the entrance. There's some doors and whatnot. And I was just like, a friendly hello. I said, I really enjoyed this. I came from Wisconsin to hear you speak. I love Pixar. I love everything. And she naturally turned to me. She goes, oh, what do you write? And that was my in. And so that was my invitation to pitch her my script. And so I pitched it to her and trying not to, have the shaky voice and all that. But I was able to pitch it to her completely, and that her eyes got really big. And she said, send me the script. Who represents you?
Oh.
And then when I turned around and said, I don't have anyone that represents me, she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I can't read anything that's not represented. So I was so stunned to just have her say, send me the script, that I went outside and I just did my happy dance and then I called my mother and said, the lady from Pixar was there. That's my script. You said send. So to me, that was the validation. And that's what we crave so badly in this process, is to have someone give us the validation, whether we place in a contest or whether we get that golden ticket email from someone. It's validation, and that's all part of this dream, right? So when I went to Austin in 2019, I actually had a separate feature script be a second rounder. And again, as a second rounder, they really reach out to you, inviting you to come, please come, here's your discount, And so I had, between 2011 and 2019, I had networked enough with different, resources that I went. I, again, had some girlfriends that flew from different areas of the country to meet me there in Austin. And at that time, one of the resources that I was working with was Roadmap Writers, and the owner, Joey from Roadmap, reached out to me and said, hey, I'm going to have a manager at such and such location in 15 minutes. Come pitch. And so it was just like, and when someone gives you that opportunity, you got to go, and you got to know your script backwards and forwards and just show up, because those invitations don't come along very often.
No.
And so it was a gift to actually be invited to come and pitch. And so you come, you're nervous as all heck, you're shaking, and you're like, and I didn't even have time to look up this manager and whatnot, but I kind of got a vibe from Joey that this guy was super, legit, and he's looking for professional writers, and he's looking for good stories, and I did it. I just
Which
did
is
it.
so awesome.
That's so crazy.
That's terrifying to me.
Yeah. And when I pitched it, he, and got to be prepared for this, when they say, that's not the story for me, what else do you have?
Yes, you're just going to have what else you got.
And then, and this is why when you go to these festivals, or when you submit to a contest, or if you submit to an executive, have some kind of portfolio established. Don't just start shopping the very first script and the only script that you've ever written. Have at least 3 or 4 ready.
And when we say portfolio, you're saying a couple projects that you might not even be written yet. They just might be concept ideas, or just, stuff that maybe you've just written an outline for, or even just a log line for, which is just a real short description sentence about what that is. Just don't feel like you have to have 3 finished scripts that are as good as this one that this
exactly.
is kind of your baby right now or whatever. But yes, absolutely. You
But
should
three
have
that you could
other
pitch,
different ideas.
you can talk about.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So, that was an amazing experience. And to this day, I still have a really good relationship with roadmap writers and whatnot. And as part of the dream of, being a writer and how else can I contribute to this dream? So flash forward, it's now 2020 or 2021. Because I've done so well at the Nashville Film Festival, I actually reached out to them to ask them if I could be a script reader.
Yeah.
So now I'm one of their script readers for their contest.
That's
So there are different avenues for you to be involved with this writing dream and this writing process. Yes, actually creating content's the big thing, but being involved in other ways. And this is the other thing that I hear time and time again from filmmakers. If someone reaches out to me and asks me to read their script, I am more wanting to read their script if they also say, how can I help you be successful?
Exactly. Yes.
So if you send it to a producer, circle back with them and say, hey, I read that you were, I read something in the trades that you're working on this. Is there anything I can do to help you?
Yeah.
And then that forms a friendship, and that's the most valuable thing.
One of the things too with any film festival, they're always looking for volunteers.
Yes.
And you can oftentimes take advantages of some of those panels or going to some of the screenings if you volunteer some time. So if money is an issue or you don't get a discounted ticket or whatever, like there's ways that you can really get around people in the industry without necessarily feeling like it's all in kind of thing. Or like you have to do this huge, like I'm going to pay for all of the extra stuff. Sometimes just getting around that environment, especially if you're an introvert, and like I'm the type of person that likes to reverse engineer things. Like I kind of like check things out a little bit first. I got to see what the rules are, how this world works or whatever. And then I'm like, okay, now I know how to operate in here kind of thing. So sometimes just being the fly on the wall for a little while can be really helpful to you too.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All amazing stuff. And we're about to wrap up. I would be amiss if I did not mention Stage 32 and how amazing they were in hooking me up with producers, and I was able to pitch to a producer on the phone, and how amazing that was. I think it was in Utah at the time, and I'm like, but I'm not at Sundance. He's like, well, maybe one day you will be. I'm like, well, thank you.
That's
And then we and the feedback from We Screenplay. We talked a little bit about feedback, but some of the most amazing feedback I got from that judge, who one day I'm gonna find. Are you 22, Judge? Are you 22? Finally. But anyways, I feel like this has all been hopefully useful information for the people listening and viewing. Obviously, it helps us. One of the things we'll talk about in a future episode is how we get through, and this is a lot of it is how you get through. You get your tribe, you get your people that understand you. So I don't know, anyone else have anything they want to add or feel like they need to add about competitions or film festivals before we?
They happen all year long, and to keep you on track, look up one of these. Look up the Nickel, and look up Austin or Nashville or Page or whatever, and see when the next submitting deadline is, and that's your deadline. Yes. That's your deadline.
That is a helpful
to work up to that, month by month, polishing that script and getting it ready, and then let it go.
I'm a deadline person. Like, it's ridiculous how much I can push something off if I don't have a deadline. But as soon as I have a deadline, it's insane what your brain, at least my brain, does with that. So deadlines, that is a really good thing. If you're looking to try to do a certain amount of projects every year, just use the deadlines for some of those competitions or film festivals. There's some amazing resources that have all the calendar of the entire year and all of the different screenplays or competitions and film festivals and what those deadlines are. I think Lee Jessup might have done something like that too. She was amazing.
Some great people to follow. Lee is a great, easy to find her, follow her. So many good ones to follow.
LeeJessup.com.
Yes.
So we might have talked about like a gazillion resources, and like that can be so overwhelming, especially if you're just getting started. And I think we just our whole mission for this podcast is to encourage anybody and wherever you're at in this process, and know that it's going to be a journey. It's not something that is instantaneous. This is stuff that takes a long time to figure out, and we're here to help.
We're still figuring it out.
Yeah, we are. This is we're documenting where we're at in this process, and it's fun reliving some of those things and how many things we've learned. Don't drink too much wine.
All right.
Well, you made it through another episode of Faith, Final Drafts, and the F Word. Thanks for joining in. I know we covered a lot of material today. So, If you want any more information on the resources we talked about, be sure and check out our Facebook page with the same title, Faith, Final Drafts, and the F Word. This episode of Faith, Final Drafts, and the F Word was filmed and recorded on a small island located in Wisconsin. If you like our videos, be sure to like, share, and subscribe.